That's just a zoom in on my face. Okay, great. The one that has all of us, and I was like, oh, if I scooch my computer back, does that change it? Nope, nope, it doesn't. Cool.
Where is the
Hi there, welcome to my channel. Hello, and welcome, and thank you for joining us to Thank You Five, a weekly show hosted by Straw Dog Theater Company, where we bring theater artists from around the globe into a conversation about live theater and digital storytelling with the spirit of gratitude and innovation. I am Manuel Ortiz. I am a local Chicago native, all-around artist, technical director, actor, exploring everything that happens in between there. I don't know, we're figuring it out. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you should hit that subscribe and like button. Get some notifications on our next show happening this Saturday. After you hit that like button, you can head over to strawdog.com/thankyou5 to join the 24/7 ongoing chat. Ask any questions you want, and more importantly, vote on questions so we know which questions you want us to ask panelists. And speaking of panelists, let's meet tonight's panelists. We're going to start with Sam.
Hey folks, my name is Sam Hubbard. I'm an actor and fight director, currently living in Los Angeles, but I spent 15 wonderful years in Chicago, 10 of which as a Straw Dog Ensemble member, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to pass it over to Erin.
Hi, my name's Erin Williams. I am hilariously frozen, and I am an actor, dancer, and musician in Chicago. I've been here for 6 or 7 years. And before that, I was working as an actor in Ohio as well. And I will pass it over to Cassandra.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Cassandra Rose. I am also in LA, but I lived in Chicago for over a decade. I am a playwright and a screenwriter and an audio drama writer and a narrative designer, which is what it is when you write for video games as well. And I will pass it over to the Ricky Harris.
Hello, hello. I am the Ricky Harris, actor, singer, dancer, teaching artist, musician here in the city of Chicago, Illinois. Happy to be here. I worked with Straw Dog the last 2 years on their Christmas show, Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins, as the music director. Helped to solidify the greatness that is going on now. I am also doing my solo Christmas cabaret this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, at the Venus Cabaret Space at Mercury Theater, 7 p.m. Going to get those tickets and join me. And I'll pass it back to Manuel.
Nice little shameless plug. We gotta show those. Sweet. Thank you. Welcome for joining us. We want to start, as we always start every week, with our famous question, what is theater? And we briefly talked about this before we started the show today. And it's a loaded question. I think just really for me right now, just kind of working in a storefront and then at a, I don't want to say higher scale, but just a different level of theater. It's evolving into something that I'm not entirely sure what this question means for me right now. But Ricky and I were talking about this, and I really just want to open up to the panelists. We kind of heard what Ricky and I were talking about. Does anyone else have anything to add? And we got to jump back in circle because that's not fair because nobody knows what we were talking about, Ricky.
Well, we're just talking about how theater now has become a masturbatorial thing for rich old white people.
Yeah.
that they give the money so they want to see what they want to see. And it's just like, what fun is it? What fun is that?
We're catering to an older generation of audience members that want to see something safe, not provocative. But yeah. I'll leave it there. Like that could go so many different ways.
But the thing about it is, a lot of theaters don't take the time to branch out to other communities, to other theater goers. Because here's the thing, there are younger people going to theater. There are non-white people going to theater in this world. But a lot of theaters don't want to take the time to market to them because they want to stay in that safe zone.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean,
I think
go ahead, Aaron.
I think it also has to do a lot with like a bigger picture of how like that's where the money is. So often, like this is a bigger like socioeconomic issue that like the people with the money are, you know, the people who are controlling what is getting seen and what is getting produced. And so like it's even more important to your point that like stories that are not or are the antithesis to those safe, you know, like stories we've been seeing for the last 100 years are being put on. But I think it also like, you know, making theater accessible is important, but also like figuring out how to get the funds to do the shows that need to be done.
I agree. And the thing is also, theaters have not attempted to get funds from other means besides rich people or a foundation. There are theaters here who are striving on the everyday person's $20 donation, whatever, right, you know, but they'll get 1,000 people to give that. It is possible, but they're not opening their doors for that. So therefore, if I go to the Goodman and I only see $1 million donors, so me giving my $100, I don't, you know, do I feel like I want to give to this? It doesn't
matter. It's like, does my vote count? The question that everyone's asking now. Does my $20, does that really matter? I just bought dinner for one actor.
Right.
So you just bought dinner for one person. That's a big deal.
Which the actor would tell you that's a great deal. But the theater's going to take probably like 30% of that. So, you know, that just gives you enough for scraps. So go to Corner Bakery and get them. Okay.
Corner Bakery.
I draw the line at besmirching Corner Bakery. Okay.
We're
Many
starting out
actors
hot.
survived on Corner Bakery. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Better seven.
Great beverages.
I'm thinking about what you're saying, Ricky, about both the marketing out to communities that aren't just the rich old white people, the subscriber base that's dying away. And I'm also thinking about, Manuel, what you were saying about like the risk taking. And I think if you look at those two things together, one of the things that theater needs to reconcile with is like, okay, if you do market to that community, why would they want to show up? Why would they want to see yet another play about being an old white person? Or I feel like sometimes there are plays that are like, oh, this has people of color in it, but it's a play about white people feeling bad about how they are around people of color. And then people of color are like, I don't need to go to the theater to experience that. Like that is my day-to-day life. So I think there's also that conversation about how do you, and I think about this a lot with video games of like, how do you satisfy the reason the person is showing up and reward them for showing up and saying like, this is for you and this is an experience you want to have. I think that's a big thing that we need to think about as we're writing plays as well.
Yeah, and at the same time, equitably paying everyone on the team and not just we were talking about before was there's a huge discrepancy between production staff and actors or performers. There's just a giant discrepancy.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a huge range in terms of theaters in our just in Chicago, right? The artistic director, I'll just namelessly, one equity theater that's in a lower tier, used to be non-equity for a long time. I know their artistic director makes $0, right? And then some of our larger equity theaters, the artistic director is going to make $500,000 every year, if not more. And if I or Ricky are the star of every show for 52 weeks out of the year, right? And we're making scale, we're going to make 10% of what the artistic director is making. Now, is the artistic director 10 times more valuable than the star of your show every week of the year? That's a question. I have my opinion. And I think it's important to note, though, that there are many companies in Chicago that are not hoarding dollars at all. And we have to like take that into account when we're looking at how do we fix things, what's our model, because the largest theaters are working on a much different scale than what even a lot of equity theaters, you know, in our city are working through, and how they're trying to distribute the wealth. And if there's any, you know, a lot of theaters are not sitting on a pile of money. Even the most successful ones are struggling right now, but
yeah,
there is a lot of money going to high-end administrators.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And although that artistic director is very important, what I do on stage, somebody who does not know that artistic director will see me and will still want to get a subscription to that theater because of what I do on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
That's
saying?
why. That's what's putting people in the seats, is to see your performance.
Right.
Without the performance,
they're not coming to see the artistic director. No tea, no shade, but you know,
Who
No
did
tea, no
choose to
shade.
play and help cast those people, right? Like,
Yeah.
has some hand in it, but 10 times the hand, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not to say that we're not a. I'm reading this. I was going to tell this at the end of this conversation. It's a book, The Courage to Be Disliked. Great book. It's about finding horizontal relationships versus vertical relationships. You know, you're running along somebody, you're going upwards. You're both in the same trajectory. You're running on independent lanes, and having a strong relationship is when you're working together horizontally versus vertically. And it's what that relationship to me sounds like is two vertical relationships. One other, but it doesn't give them the equality. We're not on the same level here. We're not going upward as a horizontal line. We're going upward vertically. And it's like value there. If full circle, if the story of theater is a sense of community and community building, this community, everyone is independently running in their lanes vertically versus climbing it as a line upward and upward and upward.
Deep thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, it's heightened. Go ahead, Ricky.
I just say yes because I worked at the Goodman Theater 1 year where they fucked up my paycheck, some of our paychecks, consistently. But I know for a fact everybody else administratively got paid on time.
Mm.
But all of a sudden, when it was not my fault, because I did my work, I turned in all my timesheets, everything I did correct. But we messed up, we can't pay you. Bullshit. You can pay your artistic director right now. You can pay your so-and-so right now. Write me a check. I still take paper checks.
It's just understanding that, you know, it may be different because you're an independent contractor coming in as an actor versus a salaried position. But again, you're not worth as much. You're not as important for me to take the time administratively to put your info in at the same time of working with the artistic director. It just, and it's a value system for me. And this is why theater is really difficult for me right now, is because I think what I'm struggling with personally is holding others to the same values that I have. And I'm learning that that's not healthy. Don't do that. Because you can't expect the same thing that you want out of what you want to give to everyone. You cannot expect to receive it back. That is,
I think it's still okay, though, to hope and to expect it from them if you're okay to deal with that disappointment, not to stray from theater too much. But I think that having high standards for those around you and yourself is okay, Manny, and I don't want you to lose that. How's that?
Thanks, Sam. This is turning into a totally different session.
I needed to hear it too, though, so there we are.
I just don't want other people's incompetence to sand down what you think other people can be capable of.
Yeah. I think for me, that's the teacher in me, where I think that I want to see the best in everybody and every artist every time. And that doesn't feel like a lot to ask from upper administrations at the Goodman. hey, I'm just as important as that upper admin, please. Thank you. All I want is, Ricky, we just want clean floors. We just want swept floors. I want you to vacuum.
That's it, just vacuum. Or even give me the broom and I'll do it. But y'all can't even give me the broom.
Right. It's not beneath me to sweep. The toilet's dirty. And you know what? I clean my own toilet too. It's fine. You got gloves? I got it. It's fine. That's
Period. Oh, it's a very interesting life. And I think I go into every theater giving them a new chance. Yeah. So I don't like to carry on my theater hatred or my theater hurt to new spaces. So when I go into a space, when I go into Straw Dog, I know exactly what Straw Dog can offer me and what they can do. What I can say is when I did work at Straw Dog, there was a keyboard ready for me. There was an amp there. The room was ready. They had music printed off for me to teach. And I was like, oh, great. So all I had to do was come into work by magic and teach. That's wonderful. But then when I go into a bigger institution and they can't even print off the fucking music.
Right. It's a little senses of, I said this to a friend the other day. What I'm finding difficult with some managers is that oftentimes people in higher administration positions have never worked in the lower administration positions. So you find somebody who's inexperienced. Actually, let me go back. Let me make this metaphor. You find a manager at a restaurant who's never been a server. That's okay. So they're dictating servers or managing servers, but the servers have had enough time to establish their own system, and you're like coming in and changing things. You can't be a manager if you've not worked in as a server. And yeah, sorry, I lost that thought. Damn it. It just went away.
No, I think that's also like just the idea that like the people who are in charge or whatever it is understand what tools we need to do our job. Like that is the responsibility of those, upper positions or whatever it may be, to print off the music, to have scripts ready, to have, whatever the space needs to make sure that their people are taken care of. That is the role of those people. And so if they're not doing that, then they certainly don't deserve 10 times the salary of the people who are on stage every night.
Right. And here's the thing. We all have performed and done stuff when people have done not even the base minimum, but we would still go on stage and perform and make the best work as we could. I mean, God bless some of these theaters I work for who didn't have heat or air conditioning and situations in Chicago. And I'm like, all we had was a script and maybe one light in the whole room. But we still would go forth and do it. And now we're to the point where like, wait, that's not right. Yeah. Y'all should be able to do at least a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, that thought came back. And it came back with Aaron and Ricky talking through that. It's the sense of community and the sense of service to others. The server is of service to others in the restaurant while the manager is managing the servers. But they have lost the sense of the patron when their only point of communication is the server. Just like the artistic director doesn't necessarily have a sense of the patron because they're not coming to see the artistic director, they're coming to see the server or the performer. It's that sense of community. It's the sense of service to, hey, we got all this ready for you, Ricky, at Straw Dog. We got it all set for you. This may not be a lot, but you can just come in, work in magic, and we got the rest from here.
Period.
And it's so little, but it's also so much. It's the difference of coming into tech, working in, maybe I'm serving in the morning for brunch and I got to do tech the next later in the day. And because Straw Dog does this, a handful of other storefront theaters do this, provide food for that day. We're like, we know you've been working this morning. We know you got a whole day here. We're not doing 10 out of 12s anymore, but we're doing a big chunk of the day. And we're going to at least give you bagels in the morning or coffee for the midday or tea if you like. The little things. It's always the little things. And if we side of that, we get to this huge, it's evolved into this gigantic discrepancy between, as we just keep coming back to this AD performer metaphor. Yeah. A lot to think about. I have another question that popped up that I think is a great segue. And the question is phrased like this. If you could go back in time and be a theater maker in a different era, what? Yeah, we're all thinking, what era or time period would you choose and why? What?
Who was the question from, Manuel?
Oh, Carissa.
Oh.
I was like, what?
I mean, I would absolutely want to be a part of the Lord Chamberlains, who then became the King's Men, which is Shakespeare's theater company in Elizabethan England, mostly out of curiosity of what that looked like, what it felt like, and to have those plays that are most of what I do, honestly, Shakespeare, to feel fresh and new and exciting the way we want them to feel when we do them now, 400 years later. I'm endlessly fascinated by it. But at the same time, I think that theater reaches back in the past so often, but is constantly evolving. So honestly, I love doing theater now because it's the doors are the widest open they've ever been in many ways, and there's technology incorporated, and and audiences are still coming somehow. So I'll have two answers to say: now and Elizabethan England.
And nowhere in between.
No,
Sam answer.
Oh my God! Put me in an Edwardian piece, I'd kill myself. No.
Yeah, I feel like I have a similar answer. If like I truly love this time period that we're in and creating things now. Similarly for like I barely get things produced as a woman nowadays, and especially doing what I like to. Yeah, what I like to claim is late stage bisexual energy to all my plays. It's hard to have that in earlier time periods. I'm also, as a writer, I do a lot of historical writing. I just keep tumbling back into it, whether it's like historical drama or it's just as a backdrop being used. So I guess if I had to choose another time period, if I'm getting shoved in there by the new Doctor Who, I guess I would choose like late 1920s, early 1930s, especially because I've been doing a lot of research about that in Hollywood in the 30s as the Hays Code was coming in, and finding out about the pansy craze. And you still have a lot of power from vaudeville, and you have some like Weimar Republic influences of like, cabaret right before World War II started, of just like this fun time of having all these open secret productions of like everyone on this set is queer and we're just gonna push this as far as we can. I think that would be a fun time to write. Obviously the time period that comes right after that is not great, so I'll stick with now. Final answer.
Jumping off of the vaudeville idea, since I'm understudying Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins right now, like this whole like idea of a traveling troupe going from town to town, like that being your family, that being your group of friends, making art together, having fun, like depending on each other for, survival even, while also like doing the things that you love, the music, the performance. So, and that, traveling theater sort of spans, time, but, this like 18th century kind of where we're looking, you have your instrument on your back and, you're friends with you and you get to make art. I think that sounds appealing.
Yes, I am a big fan of the vaudeville, but I also think like that's my naturalness with the arts as a Black queer person. First time period that came to my head was like the 70s, because I love to make like a fucking stand and like be that person in the room, like, no, we're gonna do it this way. And look, this can be done this way. Because I feel like every time I go into a room, I have to be that person to make that difference, to make that stand because of the shoulders that I stand on and the person that I am. So I would love to, the 70s would be my thing. Like, come on, we're gonna tear some shit up. Let's tear it up, and then we're gonna make it right. Let's make it right.
Rick, you and I are on the same page. I'm a rebel at heart when it comes to theater. I want something provocative. I want something that's gonna push a boundary and make you feel uncomfortable. Um, and more than just being on off stage, I want to be on stage. I want to be throwing it in your face, whatever it is. I think of theater in late 80s, early 90s, specific eras during the Lavender Scare and during the AIDS pandemic, because they were, what I find brings communities together so strongly is such a immovable force, is something that refuses to move, is what brings the best out of theater, at least what brings the best out of artists, because we have something powerful to. That's what I don't necessarily see right now, and I think that's because we're doing, and I hear it's fantastic, but we're doing Boop the musical. We're not taking risk. We're doing something that we know. We're doing something that we love, and it's not to say that Boop's bad. I haven't seen it, but I heard it's amazing. I'm going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a placeholder or a real musical?
No, there's a real musical about Betty Boop called Boop the musical. It's getting a Broadway tryout right now in Chicago.
Got it.
They're making some great musicals right now, but like theater and like musical theater right now, especially on the broader scale, is nothing but big money. It's nothing but Disney. It's like something that they know that will get butts in the seat and that will make money. So they're not taking risks. And I'm like, there's no fun in that.
Right. Where's the rebellion?
I totally agree, and I don't want to come to the defense of big money in theater. Absolutely, I do want to think, like Ricky's talking about the '70s, and my partner was reading the book that oh my gosh, her name escapes me. Patti Smith wrote, Just Kids, and you know the amount of times where she brings up like, yeah, I was making $5 a week working one shift as a waitress, and that paid my rent and everything in New York, right? It is theater's fault, yes, but our economic realities are so different as a country that risk as a whole is much more challenging. And I want more than anything for more risk to happen in the American theater. I do also just want, like, it is, in my opinion, less about what's happening to theaters and more about the income inequality in our country as a larger scale, right? Because that's what's really funding, like, Boop, and every 90s movie you ever saw being turned into a musical, or every Broadway play needing to star a Hollywood star and not, more real actors.
Yeah. I think that's exactly like, circling back to what we were saying before, like, people of our generation want to support the arts, want to be giving money to theaters, want to be spending their money on those things. But like, how much income do we have to be able to spend on those things?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. We will spend our money where we know we're getting our money's worth.
Taylor Swift, Beyonce, right? Yeah.
I don't know how people feel about this. Like Starbucks losing like millions of dollars within their stock because of their support of the overseas stuff going on. We still have a voice, and we will put our money where our mouth is. So therefore, if we can stop doing that, guess what? I told people in regards to my show this weekend, I was like, they're like, well, how much are your tickets? I'm like, bitch, fuck that. You want to see Beyonce, and I'm not charging nearly as much as her. Mm-hmm. So surely you can fork over $25 tickets for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Very reasonable. Very reasonable.
But if we go back to the fantasy of what Beyonce is promising with her Renaissance tour, she's promising, like, you're going to show up in all chrome. You're going to look fantastic. We're going to feel amazing. We're going to sing. Taylor Swift, we're going to yell about our exes. We're going to be together. Like, all those things are still speaking to joy. And while there is some risk and challenge in what these artists are doing, what they sing about, what they're saying about their life experiences, they lead with the joy, right? And so I'm going to be a little
and you know what you're going to get. And you know what you're going to get.
I feel like a lot of times when I go to theater, I'm looking at the marketing, I'm reading about it. Maybe I've read the play, or I'm just like, here's the experience I'm making in my head. And then I show up and I go, hoodwinked again. I've been tricked to being trapped in this theater for 2 hours. I saw a play in Santa Monica, like within walking distance of my house. And I was so excited because there's not a lot of walking distance theaters in LA. And I went to see it and was like, this is going to be challenging ending, but it's going to be about the war in Ukraine, but it's like, we're going to feel better at the end of it. And their message at the end was, the Russians did all these terrible things to us, and now we get to do these terrible things to them. And to get there, I had to sit through an intermissionless hour-and-a-half play that was in 3 parts that included like a good 30 minutes of just describe this interrogation scene, this guy being like, here is how I am going to brutalize and rape you journalists that I've captured. And it's like the show finished, the lights came up, and then like they all came on stage to do their talk back. And the friend I was with was like, we gotta go. We need to get out of here. This is our time to go. It was challenging, yes. It was not, there was no joy, there was no uplifting in it. There was nothing saying like, thank you for coming to the theater. Thank you for being part of this conversation. It was all being talked at for a very long time and not being able to leave. One of my mentors, Andrew Hinderaker, talks about how theater is one of the only art forms that you can't pause, rewind, or fast forward. And like all those other things, if it is not your jam, you can just click it off. You can flip to the next song on Spotify. You can do these other things. And so I want to be challenging, but I also, as somebody who teaches kids, I'm now like, we got to fit those vegetables inside the brownies. We need to hide, we need to like, everyone's rolling their eyes now, but you have to have something flavorful there to get the nutrients in. We can't lead the charge with just be challenging. And this is coming from somebody who started a theater company, and the buzzword that I started the theater company with was blitzkrieg. So I understand where we're coming from. And this change in philosophy that I'm having over the years has not come from just being like, I can't do challenge anymore. It's coming from like, it's okay to have soft things too.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Manny.
No, go ahead. I was just agreeing.
I think, Cassandra, to your point too, like it has to be a conversation, in my opinion. Like there has to be room to think about what you're being presented with, because if you're going to see something that's just telling you, like, this is how it is, this is, whatever, like, I don't think that leaves room to bring people in or to encourage, community in the form of conversation or whatever it may be. Like, and, war is obviously a terrible topic to have to, disagree about, but like, if we're talking about big things and we want to talk about challenging things, I just think that there has to be room to talk about them instead of, like you said, be talked at, be told what's happening. I think that that's also sort of something that is lacking in like the bigger scale. Like we can go and see Beauty and the Beast on Broadway or whatever, but like, what's the conversation to be had other than like the spectacle of it? Like what are we learning from this really? And so that I think the idea of like actually facilitating a conversation or ideas or thoughts, even just with yourself, I think is a goal of theater as I see it.
And I think that's great because theater should ignite a conversation. And like, yeah, I don't want to be preached at for 90 minutes, but I'll never forget, I saw a show at Writers Theater a couple of years ago. And it's a 2-person show, a white professor and a Black female student. And they were, I can't think of the show, but they were going back and forth the whole time.
Niceties.
Thank you, yes. And the thing about it being done at Writers Theater in Glencoe, Illinois, is the audible responses of a lot of the white audience members like, well, she just told you this. Why aren't you listening to her? This is what she, on the professor's side, but not listening to this other character. And I'm like, wow, I felt like it was wasted on that audience, but I would still love to do the show anywhere else besides that community because it ignites a conversation to have. And I think that's what theater should be doing.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Although I will say, like, who better to hear that, right? Like, who sometimes it's like, and I've worked at writers a lot, so I feel like I have a experience with that community, right? Like, sometimes it's like, who do we want to help change? Who do we want to challenge? And sometimes it means a couple grumbles in the audience, and that's okay. And I think, to me, maybe Cassandra, that's not actually a challenging piece of theater because it's just telling you something straight out. It's not really challenging your thoughts, right? And I think we're really comfortable right now in theater in terms of challenging our audiences with subject matter, with story, with voices, and that's all great. I'm also advocating for more challenge, like challenge and duration. Let people be a little bit bored. I am absolutely someone who's challenging the vegetables, like, because the rest of our artistic and cultural life right now is a lot of candy. It's a lot of sweets. It's a lot of instant gratification. And to me, theater, as someone who likes old boring shit, admittedly, is a great place to help people grow and like challenge their attention span, challenge their empathy. And I think if we lose that and we get too much into the like theater should be like Instagram, which was one topic of conversation in one of these panels a few weeks ago that I won't name the
Not what I would
participants of.
say.
No, right, of course. I think we're really losing what makes theater great, which is challenging the current generation with what has previously come before us and also what can look ahead. So I challenge, by the way, is one of Straw Dog's core values. I want to just throw that out there.
I'm not saying to not challenge. I'm saying
I know you're not. I know you're not. I would never say
it's one of the core
of
values, right? Genuine
Yes.
connection is also a core value in there.
Exactly.
And you gotta balance it out.
Yeah, I'm also hearing there's a lot of difference in between audience. Talking about Glenn,
Right.
talking about Cassandra, where you've got younger audiences. You're trying to feed a hard 90 minutes, a challenge with a spoonful of sugar. And Ricky, you and I are like, no, shove it down their fucking throat. We want to see it go in. You don't need the sugar. Take the medicine and get it down. And Sam, you're like, I'm gonna do the plane. I'm gonna do it with the history play. And those are great. They all sound like different audiences, though. That's interesting to like take those shows and transfer them to different locations for different communities or audiences and what that looks like. I mean,
Well, I just want to, like, in terms of shoving it down the throats, I think that like most audience members in this country, the fact that in 2023, if some, even if they're a rich old white person, is willing to sit in a theater for 2 hours, like that's a win. Like they're probably somewhat on our side. And I think, and I may be wrong, I'm willing to listen to people know more than me. I think they're probably more receptive to be pushed than we sometimes give them credit for. And I'm willing to hear differing opinions on that. And of course, there are people who are like, this isn't my life. Why should I watch this? But I think in general, right, like the world is a very divided place. And if you're willing to go, even to writers, and sit in the comfy Glencoe seats for 2 hours, we've already like half got them, maybe. But
Yeah, I go back and forth on that.
wow.
I'm actually going to be working at Glencoe in the spring next year. But for the first time, and I lived in Chicago for 20 years, I would say that as well. I don't know. I just feel my experience. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do on stage, and I'm going to present what I'm supposed to present and give the audience what they're going to give. Now, do I think that they're going to be open and receptive to it? I don't. Do I think they'll sit and listen to the show and they'll tell me I did a great job afterwards? They will, because I will do that. But will they really go home? And will this really penetrate them in a way that makes a change? So I get having people in the space and hearing it and seeing it, because spectacle of a lot of these theaters will make people be there for the 2 hours. But after they leave that theater, are they going to do what needs to be done to help this to help the change happen? That's where I'm like, come on, don't just tell me I did a great job. I know I do a great job. I have a fucking master's in fine arts and acting. I will always do a great job. I will always be on pitch. Like I'm great. I know that. But now in my career, I want to know, how are you going to make a change with what you heard within your community today? Are you going to go back?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how we know that, but that's what I want to. That's what I want. That's just my theater wish list. Go ahead.
I want to push on that because I want to know, what is the definition of change for you and everyone else in the group? What does that mean? Because for me and my husband, when we go see a show, the radio is off on the ride home, and we are talking through every point in the show, whether it's design, all intention of the show. What was the message you saw? Oh shit, I didn't see that. That's different because you're white. I'm not. So I'm seeing something you're not seeing. And then it becomes an elaborate conversation that we might take to other people in our community, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're activating ourselves in that community and doing something. So what does that mean? What does change mean?
I went to see Bernarda at Steppenwolf, and after the show, met some people at the bar. I went to the show by myself, but we just started a conversation and just talking about how this was affecting women, how women, this woman told story, this film story. And we were just able to just to have like a great conversation. I was like, wow. And it was a little bit of everybody who was having this conversation. And I was like, oh, this is what theater is. That's what the change is for me. So to be in that space, and I actually recorded a few of the interview people talking. I'm like, this is what people should be hearing. Like, this is the conversations that I want people to have after they see something like that.
I'll also be like, I'll admit to having experiences after seeing a play where I was like, man, dumb, hated that. And I mean, Cassandra, do you remember when we saw Morning Becomes Electra at the Goodman? Like,
Yes.
This was a traveling show from Germany, and it was very
It had super
avant-garde.
titles. I think it was Swedish even. It was like, yeah, it was wild.
But I still think about it. Like, we walked out being like, this fucking show, I hate it. And like, my immediate reaction was not, empathetic or curious, but man, do I still think, maybe that was good, or this moment was interesting. And so I think it's hard to know when people walk out of something, because ideally theater stays with you for years, and in this case, decades, where you can still go, oh, I'm in this moment of real life, and I'm remembering this indelible moment on stage, or I'm remembering this idea that this play had with me. So I just think it's hard to know. And ideally, if we're doing our job, even if we hated a thing, it will stay with us and hopefully affect what I think only thing theater can do is affect empathy and curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the book, The Storytelling Animal, which is all about why humans are telling stories constantly to ourselves, and that like we love stories so much that after we go to sleep, our brain's like, okay, let's keep telling stories, like a 5-year-old at a slumber party. And one of the things that it brings up in there about storytelling is that we are interested in stories. Even going back to like sitting around the campfire as a tribe and like listening to the story of the hunt and being like, okay, half the group went this way and they were attacked by a tiger. The other half the group went the other way. So tomorrow we're going to go the other way. That there's this idea of storytelling being a form of inoculation, or it teaches us empathy. Either A, it teaches us to feel less alone about an experience that we had and kind of re-up that immune system of like, yeah, I did do the right thing, or that was a tough time that I went through. Or it helps us create that memory in our brain being like, okay, when I'm in a situation like this where I have to compromise my morals or make a dilemma kind of decision, I can remember, even though I didn't have this experience directly, I watched somebody else have this experience. That's one of the reasons I love theater, and even more so video game writing, because then you can really see yourself, or you're like, I was in the room when that was happening. I remember sense memory when I was there. I remember turning left versus turning right in that moment. So that for me is the change, is having that in my mind being like, oh, that would be the decision I would make, or I wouldn't make that decision. And it sounds like it's the similar conversations that y'all are having at the bars afterwards. And it's the same thing I do when I'm sitting down as a playwright to write, being like, okay, is my character actually different at the beginning of the scene versus the end of the scene? And does that mean the audience will also be different at the end of the scene compared to the beginning of the scene? Because best theater, best storytelling has a 1-to-1 lock, right? You got to be with the journey. Because like what was happening with that play about the Ukraine, it was just like, boy, those people on stage are doing things. They're up there. And I've seen other plays where I've been like, wow, look at them. They memorized all these lines. They look like they're having a great time. And I am here until the lights come up. So that is also how I define like creating change in a person. And if it does involve a little bit of brownies, or maybe the better analogy is sneaking vegetables into the mac and cheese, you grind up the carrots into the cheese, just something to get those nutrients in there. I'm gonna die on this hill of this metaphor, y'all, but it still can create change. Columbia College Chicago's motto.
I love it.
Sam's dying. I'm sorry. I realized as I said it, I was like, that phrase sounds familiar. Where did I hear create change from?
Okay, I love the idea of you talking about the show at the bar in the space. I mean, as humans, in this economy, we don't have a third space. We go from work to home. And what it's like you were in was a third space. And then there's a whole social economical differences that we have there, because were you drinking? Maybe not, because the drink was $8. But if it was a $4 drink, maybe a $5 drink,
that's great.
Yeah.
Sam and I are like,
is a
oh, it's not
deal.
25.
fucking like 15
Yikes.
cocktail now. But a third space would be somewhere where you can commune with others, where there's a sense of community. Back to the server manager metaphor, having others servicing each other and just kind of collaborating and communicating with each other and just servicing each other. Wow, I heard that out loud after.
I was going to keep
Maybe
a
we should
straight
get in a
face until
circle and
cast.
just see
Yeah.
how much we can service each
I
other.
was going to keep it together until I saw Cassandra and Sam's face, and then I
Yeah.
was like, no, we all heard it.
Actually, because that triggered me. It's cool. Ricky, the moment was great. We're going to move on to the next question. Great segue. And I lost it because now I'm blushing and nervous. Where did it go?
Late stage bisexual energy, baby.
Okay, here it is. I found it. Arlene asked, my question is, as a theater maker, where do you turn for inspiration to, quote unquote, refill the well? And I think this is great because, I mean, we're talking about finding third spaces where we're servicing each other. I had to bring it back. And we're talking a lot about where theater is going, but we see it as a hard 90. We see it as pushing boundaries, but what do we personally go for to refill? I know I just saw Emmett Otter, and it's not a show I like. It's not a show I
How dare you? It's beautiful.
It's great. One of my close friends worked on it, and it was amazing. But for me, it was all about my husband, because he loves the show. I didn't grow up watching that movie, but he did. So it was all about his experience there. And it turned into a very inspirational piece, because I was watching the show from a completely objective perspective and going like, oh, this is a lot of fun. This is cool. This is great. That the end of that thought.
I love this third space thing. I think that is where I now draw a lot of my inspiration to continue to do theater. I'm a theater maker in Chicago. I'm still here. And I keep doing it and knowing like what I demand and desire when I go into a space, and like a lot of these theaters can't do it. But still, I'm still doing it and I'm still, working. But that third space is great. I also draw a lot of inspiration from stories around me, from personal stories, because I'm like, let's not just tell, I feel like musical theater is like this. Let's not just tell the same story in a different way. And so like a lot of the things that I hear from people now in my personal thing, I'm like, oh, this is different. Nobody's heard this story. Nobody's heard the story of a Black, queer, fat man from Iowa who was out here doing shit the way I'm doing it. So that's where I draw my inspiration.
I think that exactly the same, like what I was going to say, the thing that makes me excited about theater or art or whatever is something that I haven't seen before. It's a story that I have not seen told. It's a performer that I have not seen share their story, or a playwright that is saying something that I haven't heard before. Like, I want to see things that are different. I want to see different perspectives, because that's why I'm going to the theater. Someone said it earlier, like, I don't remember who was like, I don't need to go to see what I experience every day. That's what I experience every day. I want to go and see the things that I'm not exposed to in my day-to-day life. And I think that kind of like, again, harkens back to the things that we're saying of like, nobody needs to see 42nd Street. I'm sorry. Like, we get it. We did it. Like, I want to see something new and different from people who also have not, shared their stories before.
Yeah. I think about that every time I see Chorus Line. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to see
that can't be the only play about getting a fucking job in theater. It's not.
Yeah.
But guys,
And
if we do that one, we don't have to build a set. We can just have the blank stage. We don't need to do costumes. Everybody just shows up in what they have on when they go to auditions. I think this will save the theater.
everybody wants to fucking everybody struggles with the motorized system and the mirrors, and then it always fails. And then you have stagehands coming on. It's a whole. I'm speaking from a production side. I'm like, nobody wants to fucking do chorus line. It's a lot of automation that always fails. Just like, don't do a turntable. This is not Hamilton. Calm down. Sorry, tangent. Sam, what do you do to refill your well?
No, right. It's what everyone's saying. It's always the work. It's always watching. It's that feeling you get when you feel like you're levitating off of your seat. You know, it's the holy shit, we're sitting in the silence for 30 seconds, or the I can't believe she said that, or it's the juice. The action is the juice, to quote Tom Sizemore and Michael Mann's Heat. Like it's the je ne sais pas. It's you know, we all know that feeling when Eat the Fish, bitch, you know, from August Osage County. It's the moments of like, I didn't know a person could do that, and I'm vibrating by watching it, you know. And whether it's, and also the memories of doing the work, you know, like we've all worked so many horrible jobs where we have a scrambled egg on our shoes, or we've been sitting at a computer for 9 hours, and we're all smart people and we could be making real money and doing good stuff, but we do that because occasionally someone lets us do this amazing thing. And so it's partially the memories of like, oh, I did this thing and it was perfect and I want to keep doing it, but it's also just like, you know, watching someone do something incredible, which we all have many memories of seeing.
Can I throw this out there for all of us artists? For me, what I'm finding, the process is what really ignites me. I know that when the show opens, I'm going to be fine. I will sustain a great performance. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. But man, when I'm in that rehearsal room with a comfortable room with people who I know I feel safe around, and those discoveries and exploration, that is almost more to me than a standing ovation at the end of a show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when someone surprises you into surprising yourself, right? That's like, you did something I never thought you'd do, and now I'm doing something I never thought I'd do. Like,
hold on,
that's good.
I gotta write that down. Hold on. Someone's
that's good.
Surprising yourself. Got it.
Yeah, and for me, I find my inspiration from who I want to work with, especially since I do a lot of gun for hire work as a writer now, that it's like, okay, what do I want to do that I have full autonomy over? What do other people want to do on stage? We were joking about Columbia College Chicago earlier, but one of the big things I learned from them was doing their 24-hour play festivals over and over again. And the first question you ask your group when you are thrown as a playwright with a random director and 3 random actors and maybe a couple of props to inspire you, first question you ask is, what have you always wanted to do on stage that you want to do now, or haven't had a chance to do that you want that chance? And so I've actually done more playwriting over the past 3 months because of that. Like, I have stumbled into 3 full-length plays that I'm noodling on back and forth in my free write time, just because I'm like, this one director really liked a 10-minute play of mine that's like a gothic Victorian horror. I'm like, yeah, I can fuck around with that. I've got this good idea. Let's put more magic in it. Let's do more crazy stuff with the house. And then it's like, okay, my director friend really wants to do something that's steampunk, that has them going up in a dirigible. I already had this idea. They want to have sword fights. Great, we're going to put sword fights on there. That show's going up in March in Chicago, and I have a month to write 40 pages. And then like another play where it's like, I have friends that are in the same town at the same time. Let's do something with that. Like, that's what pulls me back. Something that's also helped me as a writer, which I know I'm surrounded by actors right now and designers and tech folks that are mostly in the rehearsal room. And my rehearsal room is sitting in front of my computer until somebody else decides to give me more rehearsal room. What inspires me is just showing up at the end of the day for a half hour, being like, write whatever you're feeling in this moment. Don't worry about deadlines. Don't worry about anything else that you promised to anybody. Like, what words do you want to, what words are in your head? And then like, that's how you end up working on 3 full-length plays at the same time. But it's also the way that you get words on the page that you feel good about, and that you're like, I wrote a sentence, solid, I did it. Now I can go to sleep feeling like I accomplished something today. So that's my tip to writers out there, is give yourself a half hour, write anything, don't judge yourself.
Nice. I love the idea. Well, I love that all of us are talking about the same thing, or not necessarily the same thing, but finding our own third place in that, kind of harking back to that idea of community and what that means for individuals, or at least for ourselves. I remember painting the set I designed for a show, and it was me and the ensemble, and we were all just drinking beers, like on a Saturday, singing songs. I like, you don't ever want to play your playlist because you find your music is good to you, but when it comes to like, hey, somebody put on a playlist, and you're like, oh shit, how about I'm gonna play my liked songs. Is that cool? Turns out everybody's like, oh fuck yeah, I know who this person is, and then we're all just karaokeing in the middle of the theater. And I remember just like sitting there going, this is it. I'm not making any money on this show, but this is what I want to do all the time, every day. It's just, if it's this, it's, and I love that. Actually, full circle back. That's what theater is. It's the sense of community, and those moments are have so much more weight than we ever give them. And we don't necessarily reflect on them until we're older, or we've gone past them, until the show is closed and you're like, oh man, remember when I did this show and that was crazy, but it was that one great moment. I
think similarly, like the theater for so many of us is the third space.
Yeah.
Like, and the theater being the rehearsal room, like the performance, whatever, but like that's when we get out of our houses and we're not, doing our day jobs, but we're with people who we respect and can work with. And so it's like we're, bringing ideas together, bringing ideas to life. And that is the third space for, I think, a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say, as a happily single queer man, theater's my bitch.
Oh.
It's my bitch. It's also my bitch.
Can we get that on t-shirts, Ricky?
Huh?
I would wear that on a t-shirt if you want to. We can sell those, I think.
Yes, please. And I say that because I'm still doing it. I'm still going to continue to do it because I still get something from it. It still loves me. It still caresses me. It still gives me joy. It still pisses me off. It still makes me want to fight. It still ignites all this in me. And I'm like, damn, Cedar, you my motherfucking bitch.
That's 3.
And that's why I keep doing it.
I remember, side tangent, I remember my brother was 10 years old. He came upstairs. We were watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and he was like trying to understand what was going on. And they used the word bitch. And my husband and I sat there and we went through, there is a difference in that word. There are different connotations. There are different pronunciations. There are different inflections, and they can mean.
Oh no, we lost it. Well, can anyone else hear him? Or is it just me that lost him? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Great.
there you are.
There you go. Yeah, Ricky, love the word bitch. We're coming close. We're actually right at time, but we want to end today with, we like to say, what is a favorite script you've read, a book you're reading, a podcast you're listening to, an audiobook you're listening to, a movie you saw that was really inspiring, refilled the well, or just think that it might refill someone else's well. And it could be 1, 2, 3 things. I want to start because I have been reading this book. I read the book, I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's fantastic. And I'm going to murder the author's name, and my audiobook app closed, but it's called The Courage to be Disliked. And it's a conversation between a philosopher and a young student. And it's like a play. I think about as I listen to it, I go, oh, this could be a really good stage play. Way too long. We need a hard 90 here. Get to the points. And then
Nah, do it like GATS, like elevator repair service. Have them do the full Great Gatsby. You just take a bunch of dinner breaks. It's great. Do that to that
that's
book.
good. They break it down in like weeks. They like have a conversation of weeks. I read it. I listen to it every morning, and then I go, "That's a lot to ponder." Think I'm gonna push that to the next day. Yeah, The Courage to Be Disliked. Wonderful. We were talking about it earlier. Great self-reflection book. Sam, what do you think? Or what do you got?
Oh yeah, recently I reread Sidney Lumet's Making Movies, which I know it's about movie making, but the first half is really applicable to theater. The second half is not applicable to making movies anymore because that's not how it's done anymore with film and sound and all that. But in terms of just taking a script, understand what is the story we're trying to tell, getting an ensemble on the same page, casting actors, rehearsing with actors. I was surprised at how true a lot of it still felt. So in terms of like oh yeah, we're doing the right thing. That was a recent thing that I really like, Making Movies by Sidney Lumet, a Bible, an actor prepares for many filmmakers, but a good, slight, swift read. Cassandra.
Good question. I wasn't sure what to recommend until this moment, and maybe I still don't know. I have a couple different books on my desk, but since I brought up the storytelling animal, how stories make us human, I went ahead and Googled that and can tell you that it was written by, drumroll please, Jonathan Gottschall. That's Gottschall. It is nonfiction. He does talk in each chapter about a different element of storytelling. So there's also some interesting stuff about like where conspiracy theories come from. It's not just about stories. It did come out in 2013, so some of it might read a little dated when it talks about conspiracy theories, but still a really good book that I constantly bring up no matter what format or genre I'm writing in. And since Sam is here and my New Year's resolution is to get him to watch Andor, I will also recommend the television series Andor.
Damn.
I know. I'm gonna pass it over to Aaron.
That's awesome. Adding Andor to my list. I feel like there are 16 shows that I need to watch, but I'm gonna go with a fiction book that is like only very tangentially theater related. But it came to mind when Sam was talking about like Elizabethan theater, and it was just such a beautiful book. And it's called A Tip for the Hangman. It's written by Alison Epstein, and it follows a part of the life of Christopher Marlowe. And anyway, his life and sort of some conspiracies around his life. It is fiction, but I think it's a really beautiful book. And so if you like fiction and historical stuff in that time period, I think it would be a great read for a lot of people. Oh, Ricky.
No, you're fine. I read and saw The Nakarima Society by Susan Lloyd Park.
Oh my!
Yes, all of those things. Also because it was just like, ooh, I don't need to read another slave play, or I know what happened in the 60s. Also, I read The Hot Wing King by Katori Hall. I read it again because I auditioned for it. I love that fucking play. It's all Black. It's all queer except for one character. It tells the story of these gentlemen making the hot wings in Memphis, Tennessee. It's beautiful, but I can see so much of myself, especially within queer culture within it. I love it. I'm like, yes, the story to be told. So Hot Wing King by Katori Hall, or The Nakarima Society by Susan Lloyd Parks.
Sweet. Those are some great selections. Those are great. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to end our show today, and I've got a couple thank yous before we end. We want to go ahead and thank officehours.global, Mondo Machine, KBH Media, and Guy for helping make the technical parts of the show work tonight. The show is made possible by Straw Dog Theater Company and its ensemble members. Straw Dog is run on a free theater model. All our main stage productions are available to everyone free of charge, which, talk about breaking the mold. here's how we move forward. The only way we can make that happen is through generous donations from our community. You can find more information about donating to Straw Dog or becoming a sustaining member at strawdog.org/donate. And there's a link right in the show notes. Yeah, great. I'm getting a yes. Yes. But I'm getting a yes from the man in charge, the man of the hours himself, Kyle, for helping creating and produce the show. We want to give him a big thank you. Round of applause, as I do for my young ones. And of course, to our audience, to our community who watch every week and chime in and participate with questions. Without you, our community, this is just 5 people talking to themselves. So thank you for watching and being a part of the conversation. And yeah, thank you, panelists, for joining us. That was fun. That was great.